Hey everyone, and welcome to the Shadowrun Podcasters 2018 year-end roundtable show. My name's Bobby Frankenberger, and here we go.
This is the rowdy side of the group.
Yeah. I wasn't sure whether or not I would get through that very short blurb without you giggle boxes giggling over me.
What can I say? I'm a professional.
Yeah, very professional. Hi, like I said, my name's Bobby, and I'm going to go through real quick right at the top here and introduce all the people. Let's make the stream look nicer.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, I'm going to intro.
That's fine.
Also, I think we need to talk about how many Discord channels you belong to.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Phone calls constantly. Go back and listen to part one. Go back and listen to part one if you don't know what they're talking about. So this is part two. I'm going to go through and introduce everybody real fast, and then we'll get right into talking about everything, talking about Shadowrun and talking about our shows and just having fun looking back at the past year and all the stuff we've done. So we have with us tonight on the show, first up, Bamce, a.k.a. Rob. It's hard for me to call you Bamce. I'm so used to calling you Rob, but without a net. Say hello.
Hello.
Next is Cassi Pohlhammer, the other Cassi. I shouldn't say that, should I? You're equal Cassis. Cassi Pohlhammer from Original Box Set. Say hi.
Hello.
Chris Henry from Crit Squad.
Hello.
Mike Louie from Drek Happens.
Hi, everybody.
We got Nathan Blades from the Talent Agency.
Hello.
Hello, indeed. Damian from Violent Life.
Oi, chummers. I'll give you that one.
Yeah, you had a lot of time to prep for that one. But
did,
you still dropped the ball.
Prepared.
Oz from Join the Anarchy.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Hey, how's it going? And Palmer from Radio Free Detroit.
Good evening.
Good evening to you. And of course, Mr. Johnson from the Arcology podcast. How you doing, Mr. Johnson?
Still here.
Now, some of us still here.
It's a cry for help if I ever heard one.
Yeah. So this is the second time we've done this with another group. It's not going to be a complete identical show. I promise I put some notes here that would make it so that people would be wanting, desire listening to it two times. But we had so many people.
The first show was practice?
Yeah, the first show was practice. No, of course not. Those people are amazing. How dare you say that, Cassie? We had so many people this year for the year-end roundup that it's a tradition of ours at Shadowcasters Network. All of us, we love to do this every year. Tradition that's older than I. It's been around since before I was there, and but we always like to get the Shadowrun content creators together, and at the end of a year, and just talk about the past year in Shadowrun and all the stuff that we do. It's just a chance for us to sit down and collaborate, talk together, and just share the love, right? But normally we just say, hey, anybody wants to come on, and we just make it work. This year, that proved to be slightly more challenging because there are so many amazing Shadowrun content creators now that wanted to be a part of it. That, like I said before, we always say, hey, everybody just come on. This year we had to say, guys, could you just only send one person from your show, please? Because there are too many of you. And then also we had to even then still split it up because we do all this on, we get together and talk on Discord. And Discord only allows you to have like 10 people on a video call at once. What, Discord, your servers can't handle all the video streams?
I hear there's this program called Skype.
I hear there is a program called Skype, and it.
I don't know how.
I also hear that it sucks.
Besides, can you imagine 20 of us idiots on the same call?
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah, I don't do bottom rack.
Oh, nice. All right, so we're gonna go through and we want to talk a little bit about Shadowrun. You guys want to talk about Shadowrun?
Wait, what?
So I was thinking about what we're going to talk about, and there was something that popped up that we were talking behind the scenes. Chris made some suggestions, and one of his suggestions made me think of something. There's this thing, I've got a lot of videos on my YouTube channel, Complex Action, that YouTube.com/Complex Action.
Where is that?
Patreon.com/complex action.
Sounds amazing.
But anyway, I've got an old video on there I did a long time ago called it was early on in my content creation called it was like 10 things that make Shadowrun. And I still always get a ton of views on that and people making comments telling me how wrong I was. And maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, I don't know. But I'd like to ask you guys what you guys think really makes Shadowrun. What to you is quintessentially Shadowrun? I want to hear from. This may be a dangerous thing to ask Bamce or Rob, but I want to hear from Rob first. Bamce.
Oh shit. So my favorite thing is the uniqueness to it, and even just in the talking while you guys were warming everything up, there was a lot of different things that were going on. Like, I'm gonna use D&D because D&D is popular, but you have your stalwart heroes of the land that have to save the world because that's it, and then you have like the people that try to run an evil campaign that always falls apart because somebody's a giant asshole.
That's me.
Exactly. And then you look at what we've got here, like even just in this call, Mr. Johnson runs like the oldest running Shadowrun AP that I know of that is a fairly standard runners doing things. Nathan, I remembered. You were talking about you run like a shadow talent agency?
Yes, that's right. Or at least the guise is the fact that they're a talent agency when really they're just criminals.
Have you done a musical battle of the bands?
Oh, there is an entire episode based around Eurovision. It's glorious.
There you go.
Well, speaking of like all the different types of shows that you can do, your show Without a Net is kind of different than the standard actual play, isn't it?
A little bit. We started, so a lot of times people will come up with backstories that are like, hey, you know, I was a corporate wage slave and then bad things happened and now I run the shadows because things. We just pushed it back so that episode 1 is, hey, this is a bad thing that's happening to 5 people all at once.
So your show is about the bad thing. It's you're the origin story.
Kind of. It's bad thing. Pick up these 5 corporate sins, throw them in the trash, and you guys can now try to survive the Seattle shadows.
Right. Which is a cool idea. I mean, just wage slaves in general is something that everybody talks about but doesn't explore a lot. I mean, I know, you know, it's. I think everybody has their own idea, and it's interesting to take a look at that. And now I know you used to do. Bamce, you used to do a YouTube series where you put GMs and players kind of unfamiliar with Shadowrun through a sort of like training camp, and by the end you sent them out on their own and all this kind of stuff. And I always thought that was a really cool idea. Is this show in any way related to that you did, or did you get did the idea come out of it?
Because I did that show where the idea was grab a bunch of people who want to play Shadowrun but don't really know what they're doing because the system's a little convoluted, and then be like, hey, here, I'm going to get you guys together. We're going to play for a while. And at the end of every run, it's like, I'm an open book. I'm going to pull back the veil, ask me whatever questions you want, and we'll talk about it to grow together. One of my cast is from one of those series, and the person that twisted my arms, I Mary Sue, because I did that, she was like, that was great. You should totally do an actual play. And then twist.
Yeah, and here you are now without a net, falling, like many of us are. I need to make sure that I do this because I'm really bad at this, and I've got it in my notes to make sure I don't forget. Without a Net podcast, you can find it on Without a Net podcast on Facebook. You've got a Discord server. Do you just let anybody into that?
Yeah, why not?
Well, you should put a link to that in the Twitch to the invite into the Twitch chat, and also the website is withoutanetpod.com. So if you wanna find that, go out and find it. I think that one of the things that I love about Shadowrun is and what makes, we're talking about sort of a thread that might go through here is what makes Shadowrun, right? And that idea changes for me all the time. One of the things that I really like about Shadowrun is that Edge is like, I feel like it really is the mechanic in Shadowrun. Like Edge is something that really feels special to me about Shadowrun, and the way that the things that I do with it and everything. Cassi, do your players in your actual play use Edge very often? Because I know that I've played with people who don't do anything with it. And
so some people have used Edge in like your normal ways, and like some of them haven't used their Edge at all. But my favorite one, the use of Edge, my brother plays a character who's like a physical adept, and he also has taken time to learn a lot about Kama Sutra and seduction and all this really fun, exciting stuff to like kind of get in. Yeah, and he failed his seduction roll with like in a really important moment that it just had to happen. You know, it's like you can't fail, man. And so he decided that he was going to burn his Edge in order to succeed
on a seduction roll.
On a seduction roll. So yeah, nice. he burned that Edge, and I think that one of the things, other than the use of Edge and how fun it can be to just like use it for really fun, screwy things, for me is like I can create any kind of character that I want, like.
Sure.
The character that I play in the podcast is a psychiatrist, and like I don't even tell people, oh, like I'm a face mage. It's like, no, I'm a psychiatrist. And then like when I got to be on Join the Anarchy, I was like, man, I could make like this thing, and I could make this. I was like, I'm gonna be an accountant, you know. So
you choose all these things, and you chose to be an accountant.
I was an accountant, and
it was amazing.
And it's so fun because like. You say these things and going on all this intrigue, all this like pink mohawk, black trench coat, but then you can come in with a character that, even though it doesn't fit in this mainstream kind of idea of what Shadowrun is, you can still make it very, very Shadowrun. So I like it a lot.
Right. So real quick, tell everybody about your show, Original Box Set, and let them know where they can find it and what it is, so that we don't forget to do that.
For sure. So you can find the podcast over on Podbean/Original Box Set. I'll actually put it in the chat because it's probably easier than me just like spouting things out. But if you're interested, we also have a lot of stuff going on our website. That's going to be even more cool things happening. originalboxset.com. And where is my podcast link, fools? I don't know. But yeah, so podbean.com/original box set is where you can find it. You're going to find it in the chat here in a second. So I think I have like 60 episodes in there right now. Dang, and so like I've been pretty slack in the past few months. So sorry, people, for you who've been following and waiting patiently. You're so patient and wonderful, and I really appreciate you. But this year, this is the year that we're probably going to be finishing up the whole story arc. So yeah, this might be our last, or at least the last one with these characters, or in this particular event. So I'm pretty excited.
Speaking of Edge, so we were talking about Edge, and you just said seduction rolls and burning Edge. Speaking of that, Chris, I want you to talk about Crit Squad for a second. I want everybody to hear about Crit Squad, and then I heard something about you and your people and Edge that I thought was an interesting story. So tell people about Crit Squad first.
So Crit Squad is an actual play asterisk in that we try our best to cut out as much of the stuff that indicates a game is being played as possible.
You try to trick people into.
Well, no, I think it's still pretty clear because like there's for every time like Eric or Lindsay gives an inspired improvised like character moment, there are times where I'm stumbling my way awkwardly through like trying to buy a gun from a shop owner. So it still, I think, feels like a game, but we try to condense the edit and cut as much as possible, and then sound design it so that it sounds a little bit like the movie that plays in your head when you're playing a game.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So that's what we do.
Yeah, and it's really great. Twitter at Crit Squad Cast, Facebook
that's us,
is Crit Squad Cast, and critsquad.com. So I did hear a story that one of your players in your actual play has a very special relationship with Edge.
Yeah, so the character Ben Gable, codename True Patriot, played by Eric Snyder, R.I.P. The character, not Eric.
Yeah, let's clear that up.
Eric's
please.
still with us. But that character, I don't think ever learned a new skill, leveled up a skill,
Right.
gained any more knowledge. Every single bit of karma he got throughout the course of his adventure went to replenishing Edge he burned as a result of, let's say, faulty tactical choices.
Oh, Ben Gable.
So was this an intentional thing, or was it just like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to burn an Edge again?
Yeah, I think it was more like that. Like the man had an affinity for flamethrowers and dynamite, and he had his own narrative of what would happen when he tossed a piece of dynamite behind him without looking.
I'm not really sure in what context he might describe any of his decisions as tactical in nature.
Yeah. Fair
They were
point.
all about
But
style, right?
He kept almost dying and not wanting to die, so he'd burn Edge, and the narrative would come and save him. But I think he only started with 2, and every time he burned one, he'd just replace it.
You guys were burning Edge left and right in your very first session.
Yeah,
but I like that idea, right? Like
there was
that,
a lot.
because raising an attribute requires all this time, right? Except for Edge. Edge can be raised instantly at any moment, correct? So why not just say, oh, I'm gonna need an Edge to just keep your Edge low. Whenever you need it, you burn it, and then you buy it back.
That's game breaking there, Complex Action.
So I think I have broken the game, and it can be thank you, Catalyst, or you're welcome, Catalyst. Thank you, Catalyst. You're welcome for the headache to fix that. Yeah, exactly. So again, Edge is one of those things in Shadowrun that I think I really enjoy. Mike, I want to talk about Drek Happens. I have just recently found out about Drek Happens, and how when did you guys start, and tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so we started in November of 2016, and we just finished we completed the first season just last year, November. Nice. And the reason it started is because, well, so in real life, I have no friends that play tabletop games. And so all our friends and family that know that we do this on a weekly basis, they go, what the hell are you guys doing? And what is this weird thing you do? So we basically just created this podcast to show them that we're not, cultist weirdos, that we actually have fun doing this. And basically by the end of the first couple of podcasts when we released it, my family and friends, they go, oh yeah, okay, so this seems like fun. You guys are still weird. We won't play with you, but you keep doing your own thing. Right. And we just thought that, hey, it's be fun for us to archive. And I guess, even though we can't get any of our friends to play with us, we found such an immediate and overwhelming response from the community. And we're just so just excited to be here. And especially in this room right here. I mean, to be in the same panel as the people in this room, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I am I'm in awe of celebrity status here.
Oh well, we'll do our best not to disillusion
you away.
No, not to
grossly disappoint you.
Yeah. but no, I think that a lot of us probably are so consumed in tabletop culture that feels like geeky tabletop RPG culture seems like it's taking over, and surely it is getting more popular, but I know that a lot of us, I know myself, I can relate to that. We have a lot of family and friends who have no idea what we do, and look at us like we're weirdos when we say that we're actually making a show about this.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I can completely relate to that.
The number of times I've had to explain this show as, I do a sci-fi radio drama.
Right.
Seriously, that's a good one.
That's not a thing.
Right.
I taught my folks how to play so that they knew what was going on when they would listen. So they learned how to play D&D to follow all of these.
Right. Well, my oldest daughter, Zoe, she just started kindergarten. So she's in school now. And, so I go and I take her, and there's functions that you go to where you're around other adults, and naturally people ask you, so what do you do? And, Those are always really fun conversations, getting them to understand that I'm a podcaster and streamer, let alone that I do it playing games. With pretending that I'm somebody else.
My mom used to think that board gaming and all this was actually just some kind of form of gambling. And she was always like trying to wean me off. It was like, no, you need to stop hanging out with your friends.
But it is addicting.
It is addicting.
Absolutely.
My initial introduction to the concept of role-playing games was stumbling across the Jack Chick tracks in the church that my parents took me to as a kid.
Old school satanic panic stuff, huh?
Those chick tracks clearly worked on you.
Yeah.
So, but
just not as intended.
Yeah. Surely, though, the way to combat that and spread the love of the hobby is to introduce people to it, right? So, Nathan, you are particularly, I know we were talking behind the scenes, you're particularly interested in this sort of mission, right?
Oh, okay, yeah. So, like, the thing about having lots of nerd friends, just in general, is that they are all very, very kind of like genre savvy, and in their head already have an idea about how something should already work, right?
Right.
So the people who play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons go into literally every other RPG with the understanding of how that game works, and then that colors their expectations of what they get from other games. A decent number of the people who play in my show, The Talent Agency, had never played any tabletop RPGs before at all, and they have done the dopest shit. So, because they have no preconceptions of what this game is supposed to be, so it can be literally anything. Currently, I was going to kind of launch into an explanation of what the talent agency is, but today
you should do that actually, and then so people have context.
Sure, absolutely. I would describe it myself, but somebody on the Shadowcasters Network Discord posted this message, and I feel it's really accurate. The Talent Agency is a podcast where a bunch of greenhorn runners take entirely legal jobs and somehow manage not only to make them crimes, but goof it up in their own individual ways. It's pretty fun.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
That is a real
Nathan Blades' show, The Talent Agency. It's pretty fun.
That's amazing. Yeah. So continue on. So I like this idea that, or I love hearing that you had a bunch of people who'd never played before, because that's something that I am particularly passionate about. With the GM screen stuff I do on YouTube, I'm obviously one of my missions with that is to take people who are not super familiar with the rules, or maybe even because I have some stuff coming up that I'm going to be, maybe I'll mention a little bit later, that is, the goal is to take people who have never played before, and I want you to be comfortable with it. So with Shadowrun, especially since it's so impenetrable sometimes.
Oh gosh, yeah, no. I guess it's good to note that I play Shadowrun Anarchy, not actual Shadowrun, because like gays can't do math, and or else I definitely can't. So
Shadowrun Anarchy is actual Shadowrun, all right?
Yeah, exactly, no doubt.
When people say like, "What is the best edition of Shadowrun?" I can't help myself but say Anarchy.
Yeah, no, that's true, that's fair. But yes, the idea of that the game being easy to learn and easy to play is a pretty big way of being able to get new people into the system. Also because we do a broadcast, essentially a piece of entertainment, and I wouldn't want to put the onus on the people listening to the show to understand how the game works. So keeping the game relatively simple, or at least managing to play it in a way where my players can kind of do what they want, and it's my job as the GM to kind of make that actually happen within the space of the rules. So people who go in blind, not really knowing how to play Shadowrun, that's perfect, because you don't need to worry about that. You just need to kind of like roll dice when I ask you that would be a good idea, but otherwise tell me all the cool things your character wants to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially since I guess within the kind of general terminology of like the Shadowrun community, our stuff is very pink mohawk. It's very kind of like absurdist. The finer details of, aside from it just being people doing legal jobs and ruining them, the idea is that all the stuff is within the arts and entertainment industry of the UK in 2077. As you can tell by my voice, I'm from the UK. It's 3:45 in the morning here. Somebody
Thank you, by the way, for that.
If somebody went and put on really elaborate makeup at 4 a.m. to go to speak to a bunch of gentlemen callers on the internet, they might be offended.
You have the best pajamas, Nathan.
That's the first time I've been described that way, and I think I like it.
That's fantastic.
It's time to switch careers.
So
Maybe.
Yes, and if you're listening to this audio only on a podcast somewhere, you should go to twitch.tv/Shadowcasters Network to see Nathan's amazing makeup.
That's dress
is impeccable.
trophy.
It's true.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to switch gears a little bit. So if you have something else to say, then please do, so that I don't step over that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, just to wrap up, go find the joy in your cyberpunk settings. It's not all grim people smoking in the rain. You can listen to my stuff at thetalentagency.podbean.com. I will link that in the Twitch doobly-doo.
And I will save it to my favorites.
Yes, thank you. So, one show that's been around for quite a while that I think a lot of people are familiar with and love, and I know I love the work that you do, Damian, is Violent Life. Tell people about, like I said it in the last show, it's sometimes easy for me to take for granted, some of us who've been working together for so long, that everybody just knows about you, but we have so many different creators here together at the same time that we're going to have a bunch of different audiences. Please tell everybody about Violent Life, what it is, what you do, because I think it's very different and the quality is like you offer quite a lot. I want people to hear about it. Go ahead.
Thanks, Bobby.
You're welcome.
It's nice when we actually have interactions that aren't taking the piss out of each other. Violent Life has been around for. It's crazy because it does feel like I just started this yesterday, and Bobby and I were coming in on the tail end of. Or at the beginning of a kind of a new wave of people getting into it?
Yeah, I think so. There was like I would call it a third wave, which is kind of, I still think the wave we might be finishing right now, and we might be really entering a fourth wave. But you and I came in kind of at the same time.
Yeah, and Violent Life started off as the shadow blog of a sixth world rock star that moonlighted as a Shadowrunner named Vendetta. We kind of spent some time finding ourselves on the show, and so in addition to continuing doing that for quite some time, we started on a Shadowrun audio drama. We were inspired to do that, and it's one of the things that I really enjoy about the world of Shadowrun is that I'm not particularly attracted to the art of Shadowrunning. I mean, that's the game, and that's the game that we play. But the real stories that I find intriguing are the slices of life in the sixth world. What happens on the streets? What happens, in the gutters? And that's what I wanted to show in Redmond Born. So we really grew, I think, a rather unique Shadowrun story out of Redmond Born. Yeah. And then, as if all of that wasn't enough work, we decided to start an actual play last year. That Oz here is one of the characters in that, as well as Cassi that was on the first segment, called Tales from the Stuffer Shack, which is another slice of life kind of situation, but it's more of a comedic, irreverent take on the Shadowrun setting, where the characters are clerks in a stuffer shack, and that's the entire premise of the show. But they kind of get into problems and work their way out of it and continue perpetuating the chaos.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of crossover stuff that happens between a lot of us, and a lot of the ones that crossover exists are here in this group. And I want to talk about that in just a second. But we're talking a lot naturally when we get together. We talk a lot of behind the scenes stuff and things that you might not know. And one thing that people might not know is that Damian and I are actually very good friends.
Yeah. I was wondering where that sentence was going.
So Damian and I are very good friends.
We got into this, like, when we got into the Shadowrun scene in the first place, we kind of like, I guess, found each other and we're like, hey, why don't we start doing some stuff?
Yeah, exactly. I think the first time we actually met was when I invited you on to an interview for my YouTube channel, and you and the voice of Vendetta Violent herself. So
yeah, and I was the first person that was on the cast list for the Complex Action actual play.
Yep. But it's kind of a joke. The reason I say that, for those who might not know, is anything else that me and Damian do, we're constantly insulting each other. So much so that, fun fact, on ReadyCheck, our World of Warcraft stream that we do, we now have one of our fans in the show. He might even be here tonight. I don't know, but a Supplice who's on the show with us now. He told us afterwards one time. He said that he thought that me and Damian actually hated each other, and he was confused.
That at Gen Con too, right?
Yeah, it was so funny.
So I kind of love that, but never fear, me and Damian are actually quite good friends. So
we're role playing. We're very fake people.
Yeah. But there's a lot of crossover that happens in some of the shows that we do. And I think Violent Life and the Complex Action actual play was kind of the start of that, wasn't it?
In a lot of ways, it was like a little known crossover between Payday and very architect. Like it was very orchestrated between Payday and one of the situations that happened in one of the early Shadow blogs, kind of crossed over in that. And since then,
Payday being the character you played in the Complex Action actual play.
Yeah, he was like a Shadowrunner involved in taking down the studio that Vendetta Violent did her thing in.
Right.
But since then, we've crossed over to almost everybody at this point. I mean,
and I think. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Came through the Stuffer Shack.
Crit Squad, yeah,
not
Crit
long
Squad.
ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of a nexus for a lot of these crossovers that happens is Oz, your show, Join the Anarchy. Like a lot of us, there's a lot of your show being live and improvised and whatnot. And I'm going to give you a chance to sort of give the pitch in a second for your show, but it's a really good place for all of us to sort of like bring elements from all of our different worlds, and because you're constantly every episode building your world live on stream. Tell everybody about Join the Anarchy.
So Join the Anarchy is here on the Shadowcasters Network Twitch stream. We're on every other Monday live, and we play Shadowrun Anarchy. We do it improvised entirely. So as GM, I show up with little to nothing other than what I already know has occurred and what probably that meant. And then I just take audience suggestions, and whenever we are kind of like, oh, let's just insert, this is a good time to insert something. We just ask the audience, or the audience might just be talking in Twitch chat. We're monitoring, and then we're like, ooh, that's a great idea. And I think that maybe that's why a lot of those crossovers have happened, because the people that are watching also watch a bunch of everyone else's stuff, and so it all just kind of cross pollinates. And especially first season last year, we had almost all of you, I think a good chunk of you, we had on on that show as guest players, and we were rotating guests like every week. This year, we've decided to just kind of take a step back and focus more on the players,
with occasional guests here and there, right?
With occasional guests here and there, yeah. But I think first season where we got to meet so many of you guys, that's really where all of that just started to explode, because every time we had a guest on, everyone was having so much. The guest would always have so much fun, and it's a great show, and I love doing it. It's like the highlight of my week.
Yeah, we create characters on your show that we fall in love with just playing. Most recently, I was playing a Blood Paladin, and I love that character. So.
Yeah.
And
I think that one of the things that I like about it is I can listen to what you guys are doing, and then I can be like, babe, because Max runs the Shadowrun game. He's like, we should do this. We should add Canada into our game. We need to do that because it'll be so fun. So
because
I love taking stuff from it. It's
the
great.
nature of the improvised nature of Join the Anarchy, it's almost like just a bunch of people are sitting around and telling jokes and coming up with funny ideas and really fun ideas, just sitting around like you're in your living room together. So it's so much comes out of that.
Smash Brothers.
Yeah. But so I love that. But one of the big things came out of Join the Anarchy is like, I think our first official, like the first official spin-off show that has ever formed out of any of the things that I know of anyway, and that is Radio Free Detroit that Pohlhammer produces down there. Pohlhammer, say hello.
Hello.
Pohlhammer,
Hi.
you tell people about Radio Free Detroit and tell a little bit of the story of how that started.
Okay, well, Radio Free Detroit it's a fully in character podcast, and it's also a podcast in universe. So it's something that exists in the Shadowrun world in which it happens.
Right.
And it's hosted by Ziggy the Troll, who's a Shadowrunner and also philosopher. He loves panther cannons and ice cream and dispensing advice and just generally telling people to be chill.
Right. I knew about Ziggy the Troll long before I knew that it was you that was doing it. Like right when it started off, you have the Twitter account. It's at Ziggy the Troll, and you should put that in the chat so that in case people don't know about it. But it's Ziggy Ziggy. This is for the audio only people. ZIGGYDATROLL. Ziggy the Troll. And I saw it all the time, and it was like, wow, this is a funny guy. Who's doing all this like funny philosophy, like Shadowrun philosophy, but also it's, you do it like in the voice of a troll, and it's really, or not a troll. I hate to be a troll racist, but
he's a particular archetype.
Yeah.
He was actually based on a character that existed back in the late 90s and was relatively popular in the Shadowrun community at the time, created by a guy called Blackjack.
Blackjack, I know Blackjack.
Who probably you're the only other person that remembers.
No way, man. Brumby, the philosopher.
Was that shade?
There, see, now everybody tells me. Yeah.
Now we all want to know him.
Brumby the Troll was the original troll Shadowrunning philosopher. So he was an inspiration, but I don't think that Ziggy is his copy or anything. I sort of was thinking about him, back in the early 2000s when I was playing 3rd edition Shadowrun.
Yeah.
And had this character that was like, oh yeah, he's like Brumby's son. And then fast forward 15 years, and I'm watching Join the Anarchy, and I Join the Anarchy. They do a little contest. You can create your own NPC if you win the stream boss.
Right.
So I was able to create an NPC. Oz and I talked together, and I was like, I want this guy. He's going to have a radio show. And we just sort of were talking back and forth, and it was like, this guy needs to tweet. So then it became a Twitter. And then from there, I was like, boy, this is just a lot of fun. I want this to be a real show, not just a show on Join the Anarchy.
Right. And so but the funny thing is you write do you write the scripts for it? You go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay, so I write all the scripts for it, and then because I generally have a lot of anxiety about the sound of my own voice, and I also heard Oz do it first, so I was like, no, Oz, you are the right voice. So Oz graciously said, yeah, sure, I'll do the voice.
Right.
So I send him the script, he sends me the lines, I do all the editing and post, and I put it up.
Right. But you heard Oz do it first because he naturally played the character that you submitted for Join the Anarchy.
Yes. Yeah. So I wrote the original. I created the character and gave Oz an example, like, oh, here's some stuff he might say. And then I think, Oz, you said, did you just write that, or did you copy paste that? You had it from before. And I was like, no, I just wrote that.
Yeah, no, he cranks out those scripts like just so quickly and so naturally. I was like, look, just tell me what you want me to say on Join the Anarchy. I will just read it verbatim as though this was an actual podcast that's happening on the. So like, for a good chunk of our time, every episode we have a Ziggy introduction of some kind that is somehow thematic to the show,
which is cool.
I'm a little disappointed you didn't give that answer in the Ziggy voice. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Aren't we all?
Can you just say
Ziggy likes the ice creams.
Sorry, I have frog in my throat. So Cliff, you have probably one of the more popular, or at least one of the longest running podcasts that we've all done, and but a lot of people might not know about it because we have a lot of new faces here, and I want you to get a chance to tell everybody about the Arcology podcast.
Sure. The Arcology podcast is a Shadowrun community podcast. It's about all things Shadowrun, mostly focusing on the tabletop role-playing game, mostly 5th edition, though we do episodes about Anarchy as well. And we also have a really, really long-running 5th edition actual play that I'm realizing it's been like we've been talking to all these different actual play creators that I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum here. And that we don't really edit out a whole bunch of the rules talk that comes up or the dice rolling. I mean, I edit like out the boring stuff, but
yeah, like the bathroom breaks stuff. And
yeah, or if we're just talking ad nauseum about a rule and trying to figure stuff out. A lot of times I'll leave those discussions in, but one of the aesthetics I kind of go for myself is more like it's a good way to learn the game by listening to a story, but also it kind of gives you that living vicariously through us. If you maybe can't get into a Shadowrun session or because your work schedule or finding the right group or something, though it's getting easier and easier with online options of playing. But you get to sort of feel like you're sitting down at the table with these players and enjoying the game and getting to know the players as well as their characters in a way.
Well, your podcast, the Arcology podcast, was one of the first true informational Shadowrun podcasts out there. I say one of the first, and I know there were other ones, but I can't remember the name. What was the one that
Critical Glitch?
Critical Glitch, of course, was it's kind of one I see as one of the main sort of spiritual predecessors of the Arcology in a way. We're coexisted at the same time for a while before they ended. It was actually Stephen A. Tinner who started this tradition of getting the podcasters all together for a roundtable discussion every year.
Yeah, exactly. And we gladly carry on that tradition. But the reason I think that because Critical Glitch was in a lot of ways very, very much focused on sort of like missions and there was a lot of like, but your podcast was really like one of the first ones to really just be like, okay, informational podcast for people who are interested in playing and running and just playing Shadowrun. So I think your actual play, the Arcology podcast actual play, leaving all that stuff in is a really, I feel like, good companion piece to the informational podcast that you do. Because it's like, okay, we talk about this stuff all the time, but here's the podcast in action, or here's the game being played in action. And I know that I found your podcast because that's what I was looking for. I was looking to get into run Shadowrun again after a long break, and I was like, I'm going to be GMing it for the first time. I want to get some examples of some people who've been doing it, and I found your podcast. And I think it does a really good service to a lot of people, and it's super entertaining to boot. So,
yeah, I just want to echo that same thing. Mr. Johnson, you and your wife, I mean, you guys are the inspiration why we started Drek Happens. And even like the major bad guy for our season 1 was based on the lore that you gave us about the Black Lodge, and it was just so much fun to listen to.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So, thank you.
I never get sick of hearing people tell me that their inspiration for their show was something I did. It's like my favorite thing. Well, one of my favorite things.
It's really good. I guess.
I'm super happy you're doing what you're doing, and I'm glad to have played some part in that, however big or.
So I guess to round out, I guess I should say I'm Bobby. I do Complex Action YouTube channel, so youtube.com/complexaction. I guess I'm also the co-host of the Arcology podcast now. Whenever
that was a change this year. I think we started it or this last year, 2018. Referring to it as this year, I guess. Dead and gone, goodbye, never come back.
Yeah, whenever I'm not super busy. I think lately, the past couple episodes, I've been super busy and not been able to. But Oz also does some Arcology podcast episodes, the Anarcology episodes about Anarchy.
Those are informational episodes about Shadowrun Anarchy. So if you're curious about how that works or having trouble with figuring it out from the book, Join the Anarchy is a great resource to check out for that, and a lot of fun.
Don't rely on my show to teach you how to play the game.
Right. So
we actually just finished recording the last of our dossier episodes. I haven't released it yet because I'm actually doing a January public release hiatus, so I can catch up and build up a backlog and somehow keep up with my release schedule the rest of the
and just take a breather too. So
I'm not really doing that part. No, I'm just trying to build up the backlog.
Right. Well, at least you're accomplishing some sort of take the pressure off goal. But because you do a lot of stuff around the community, Mr. Johnson. So one of them is Legends of Earth Dawn. I know it's not directly Shadowrun related, but tell people about the Legends of Earth Dawn podcast that you do.
It's Earth Dawn is on its 4th edition, which is a really good edition of Earth Dawn, and we have an actual play podcast that it's a lot of fun. It actually, Earth Dawn being the idea is that it's the last time Magic was around before our recorded history. So the Shadowrun is the 6th world. The hot mess we're living in now, is the 5th world, and the 4th world is Earth Dawn. And so it was designed by FASA, who was sort of the company that made Shadowrun back in the day. It started all that. With the idea that kind of a different take on Dungeons and Dragons with some different ideas and aesthetics, and definitely a lot of that sort of FASA influenced the world building and the depth of that. So we have a lot of fun playing Earth Dawn and managed to attract some Shadowrun podcasters and some RPG authors, including we actually have the line developer for Earth Dawn as one of the players in the group, which is pretty cool. We have Opti as a player. He's an incredibly reckless orc bard, basically. Jules, or Rainbow Smite from Seize the GM, who was in the last hour that we did, is one of the players. And Russell Zimmerman, who's an author for Shadowrun and Earth Dawn, is one of the players. So we've got a lot of really great players. We have a good time with it. And I do the GMing for it. We have a bunch of other episodes that were recorded and previously released. We're kind of like a version 2 of the actual play, because I made the mistake of inviting too many people when I started the show, much like
tonight.
Yeah. I started to say that, like, no, it's not too many. It's great to see all these people, right?
Yeah, for
It makes it
sure.
hard to manage and organize things, though, I think. So
Yeah,
I don't know. It was actually surprisingly easy to get everyone together. I had
Well, that was the
full
problem,
guest list
right?
of 17
way more
people in
smooth than
24
Legends
hours.
of Earth Dawn handled it. So my initial idea was like, let's do an Earth Dawn actual play, and then got people involved, and I have too many people, and so let's do 3 different stories and plot lines, and then that got to be people dropping in and out, and normal keeping the band together messiness. And the one group that kind of held together the best is this one, and now we're just sticking with that one for the story.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's.
I think I was going to say, I think you missed reading in between the lines, Oz. The only reason we didn't get this many people in previous years is because the people organizing it are piss poor at doing it, myself included.
Well,
Okay.
this is Oz's first time doing it, and he was just like, let's share the love. But for sure, it's definitely has a lot to do with the fact that there are a lot of people now making Shadowrun content, and that's really awesome. That's something that we're very passionate about at the Shadowcasters Network, is content creators, and we love to support that. The Shadowcasters Network Discord that was one of its earliest missions when we made it. I think more than just over 2 years ago now, maybe more.
That's ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And
it was originally the Violent Life Discord.
Yeah, it was.
Converted it.
Yeah, it was. And then I told you, I was like, "Hey, Damian, I want to do the Shadowcasters Network thing, and you think I could borrow your community and we could just rename it?"
Nice.
So that's what we did. So we were talking about what makes Shadowrun, and I want to hear from you, Mike, who does Drek Happens. Want to remind everybody that. But Mike, what to you? First of all, let me ask you first. How long have you been playing Shadowrun?
So I played Shadowrun since like the actual tabletop game in college. So that was 2000 for me, 3rd edition.
Okay, so you started in 3rd edition in 2000. So
started 3rd edition, but then I took a 10-year break, and
Sure.
then when I started listening to the Arcology podcast, and then the complex action to say, well, how do you do these complex things? Then it was like, oh, I get it now. This is pretty cool. Maybe we should create our own podcast based on our own adventures.
That's great to hear. So what to you makes Shadowrun? Like, what is quintessentially the thing about Shadowrun that makes it Shadowrun?
Yeah, when I think of Shadowrun, it's definitely the story itself, the lore. To have a world where it's like somewhat our near future, parallel to like our past history, whether it's like how we screwed over the Native Americans or how the corporations are, rising in power. That's all something that's really real today. And this goes to the next step of like, wow, what if our world ended up like this? And if we did live in this world, what kind of choices would we make? And so having that choose your own adventure kind of feel with that world, it's just so compelling to me.
Yeah. And Shadowrun, I don't know of many other games that do the sort of like you said, near future. It's definitely a world we recognize, and I think actually we've on my old podcast, Sixth World Podcast, we interviewed Jason Hardy and got to talk to him about this problem or this challenge. It's not really a problem, it's more of a challenge that they have with Shadowrun, which is that it is our world in a near future. And so from edition to edition, they don't get to, like D&D, for example, they've got their own separate settings. And when they come out with a new edition, it truly is just like they're coming out with a change to the rule set or a new rule set or something. And they can kind of divorce that from and they might create settings themselves, but the rule system itself, in a lot of ways, is able to maintain a separation from the setting. But Shadowrun is very different and very integrated into the world, and it's our world, and it's a world that we just can't hit the reset button on when a new edition comes out, right? So they have this challenge of maintaining that and letting the lore weave itself together with the rules, and it has to be continuous, and it's a very interesting challenge, I think.
Yeah, I just love how it taps into like our favorite childhood fantasies of like, hey, when I grow up, I want to goblinize into becoming an elf or a dwarf, or it's like all those legends, like those dragons and things like that. Like they actually existed in this world, and they are coming back. So it just really brings that funness and that creativity to say, hey, if this was real, how would you play it out?
Right. Are there other games out there? I'm not familiar with any. Are there other games out there, tabletop RPGs is what I'm really talking about, that mix the cyberpunk and fantasy elements together, like Shadowrun does?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. No, I don't think there is anything.
Because I know that was one of the things they did on purpose at the beginning. It was just that was inspiration for the world back in the 80s, and that was also a marketing and selling point for the game, was that it was, cyberpunk.
You can squint a little bit and look at something like Blades in the Dark or probably a Savage World setting and kind of get that idea.
Yeah.
There has been some other games that have come up, but I would say that they are like D20 versions of Shadowrun, really, without being Shadowrun. Like,
sure,
it's less an original urban fantasy as it is something that is inspired by Shadowrun.
So, what makes Shadowrun to you, Damian?
The Redmond Barons. Honestly, it's like earlier when I was saying, it's the gutters, it's the thrill gangs, it's the pink mohawk mixing with black trench coat. It's looking up at the far away corporate buildings and saying, maybe one day I'll be there, but knowing you never will.
Right.
it's all of that. That's Shadowrun to me. It's the old we run against the corpse in their shadow thing. That's it.
That sort of like existential Sisyphean, thing where you're always trying to get that next payday that's going to put you on top, and you're just never going to get there because the powers that be that you're even working for, they're just not going to let it happen. So
and then dealing with the confusion of the supernatural and a world that's changed so dramatically in that years in such a place as Redmond, I think really encapsulates the whole.
The Redmond Barrens really is a good thing to point to. I keep stepping over somebody. Go ahead.
That's okay. I was just gonna say that's what I like about Shadowrun is two things. It's the Shadowrun is a world. It's not a game system.
Right.
You can play Shadowrun with whatever system you want if you don't like the way that it works.
Yeah.
Which is why you could say I'm playing Anarchy. Well, it's the same world as SR5.
Right.
But something building on what Damian said is the central dichotomy of Shadowrun is they're these Shadowrunners and they're fighting against the corporations, but they're also at the same time the thing that enables them to do what they do. So it's a self-defeating, which is to me the most dystopian part of the Shadowrun setting is that it's self-fulfilling. By basically, and I try to bring this out in my show as well. It's like Ziggy does not realize this, that by taking jobs for corporations, you're enabling them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I love that sort of kind of a setting in it, and it's right. So haven't heard from you, Nathan. What your show is a lot different in tone, I think. So I wonder if you have a different perspective on this. What makes Shadowrun to you?
I think what draws me to Shadowrun, specifically like as a game, the kind of experience it provides through its mechanics of the idea of you are a team of experts who are working together to do a specific kind of like crime or goal or heist, separate from other tabletop RPGs where your role in the team is being a mage, but that's different from your role in the team is being like a safecracker. That specific experience is something that Shadowrun is really, really good at providing. And also your unique consummate skill might be being best friends with the ghosts, and that's pretty rad. But also within specifically like the realm of Anarchy, the character sheet of Anarchy is something that is a small thing that I think is really interesting, where character sheets in games, the amount of space you dedicate to things is actually an indicator of what you want out of the game a lot. So if a game has a really large space for kind of like spell lists, that's a really big representation of what that game's about. And a ton of Anarchy's character sheet is dedicated to writing down the personal values of your character and the things that they might say in given situations, more than the items you might carry.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Which is
the gear
really
the gear section on the
cool.
sheet is like tiny.
Teeny tiny.
And even the mechanics of the game kind of go along that way too. Like, isn't in Anarchy you're only allowed to have a certain number of pieces of gear, at least at character generation.
Of like notable gear and like skipping over the kind of minutiae of like, you're probably going to be the kind of person who has cable ties. You don't have
definitely,
to write that down.
Yeah, you're right. It definitely does emphasize like, hey, all this other skills and mechanical stuff, you gotta think about that, sure. But the RP stuff, the thing that enables the story and the storytelling, like that's what we want to talk about. Like, and I do like that about Shadowrun. Anarchy.
Anarchy's been the best. I play a lot of different cyberpunk RPGs. I just like cyberpunk as a genre and want to try all of them, and they're all good at different things. And that's the thing about Anarchy particularly that I love a lot. Yeah, that's emphasis on letting you just be the character instead of being bogged down in other things that aren't you being really fucking cool.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So speaking of Anarchy, and we're talking about 2018 and looking back and everything, Oz, I know you got really excited about this. We found out, I can't remember if it was at a convention it was announced or something, but it actually, it might have been on my podcast, the Sixth World podcast, when we were talking to Jason Hardy himself. But I know last year we found out that that Catalyst has decided to double down on Anarchy. And because remember in 2017 when Anarchy was released, they said, like, this was not an assumption. They straight up said, yeah, we got this Anarchy thing we're doing, but we're not going to pay. Like, here you go. This is the last you're going to see of it, and have fun with it.
It was just basically it was an experiment, if anything. It was just kind of like, fine, here, have this one-off product. You don't really need anything else. But I think after the overwhelming, I can't say overwhelming support, because there are definitely still detractors of Anarchy, people that prefer the crunch of 5th edition and the minutia, right, to what Anarchy can provide. But there was definitely this renewed interest with Anarchy. A lot of people that, just wanted something a little more simpler, something that I definitely wanted. And that's really why Join the Anarchy was even born in the first place. I wanted Shadowrun Anarchy to actually have a stage and be seen as something that is, a good alternative if your group, if Shadowrun 5th edition is not for you. And then when they said, I was excited. I can't say I was surprised that they were going to go ahead and go for more Shadowrun Anarchy stuff, because they should. There's so much more that you can expand.
Yeah, so. Behind the scenes, I think when we would have conversations, you and I, you were always saying that. You were always like, no, I'm hoping that, and I was speaking from what they said at Gen Con when it was released. I was like, no, Oz, they straight up said they're not going to do anything with this, but you held out hope. You're like, no,
I said my evil plan is that Anarchy will at some point get the respect that it deserves and then be seen. Like, we can still have Shadowrun and have fun with it in this way if you're not having fun with it in this way, and you can have fun with it however you prefer. But there needs to be support for it, and I'm glad that it's happening.
I hope there's a second Anarchy book at some point. That would be. Yeah. I don't know what would be in that.
It's been announced.
It's going to be a Chicago book, actually. I
you haven't heard?
I got to.
Dang.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So there's a book called Chicago Chaos that should be coming out soon, and it's going to be a bunch of new stuff, like new shadow amps and new qualities and all that, plus like a bunch of lore on Chicago and mission briefs that are inspired by the Chicago mission storyline.
Sure. Yeah.
That's cool.
He had a hand in that one, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I think so.
So, Bamce, I got a question for you about it's about Anarchy, and you spend a lot of time on the Shadowrun subreddit, and a lot of people over there are really into the rules crunch, I know, and they talk a lot about it. What is the general feeling now that we're more than a year into it? What is the general sense and feeling about Anarchy among that community over there?
So, I think a lot of the talk about Anarchy, from my feeling, gets to be, hey, it's a cool idea, but not executed well.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, they went with this queue system or whatever it is they used, when my suggestion would have been, hey, call up Pinnacle Entertainment and be like, yo, we want to make an official Shadowrun book for Savage Worlds.
Sure. Yeah, I can understand that. I think I had a lot of criticism for, as much as I liked the spirit and what I felt was the mission. I had a lot of criticism for Anarchy when it first came out, and with that little sample rule set that we got at Gen Con in 2017 and whatnot. But so I'm not surprised to hear that. I guess I'm not surprised to hear negativity from Reddit at all.
So, full disclosure, I haven't read like the entire book. But
right, sure.
When they released those, the pre-gen characters and stuff, it's like, these are cues and stuff about your character, and I'm reading it and I'm like, this doesn't tell me anything about this person.
Oh, you're talking about the examples that they gave.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That were just they didn't really specify what they weren't differentiating. So I get
catch lines a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
The book didn't do a fantastic job of explaining how to play it. to people who were totally new completely to Shadowrun. They kind of assumed that you already knew how to play Shadowrun.
And then you only got this
So
book.
the Shadowrun manual.
Yeah, and you just got this book because you don't want to deal with 5th edition anymore, and you just want to play something lighter. You just bust out.
That's the second problem.
Yeah, that was my biggest criticism, is that I felt like, what's your goal here? Are you just trying to get? Yeah, and it just felt that way. Yeah, so I agree with that.
I'm buying the Shadowrun Anarchy book, but I really also have to buy at least the core rule book to know what's going on.
Right.
Or, spend hours listening to various podcasts that talk about the setting. I can understand.
Right.
That's I think the intro to the setting in the book is one of the is the best and most concise introduction to the Shadowrun setting in.
Yeah, I've pointed people at it, like, just, you want to play regular Shadowrun, but here, go read these 20 pages in the Anarchy book, and then come back and start again with listen to Opsie's podcast, and then go from there, because it gives a good basis. Like, if you want to jump in, like, it's sometimes you don't want to spend 5 weeks preparing for a game. You want to pick up the book, read it the night before, and do some crazy things the next day. And with Anarchy, you can do that. You don't know everything about it, but that's fine. You just do what you want.
I think that a lot of what's happening now is because there has been such a move recently with, for example, 5th edition D&D to have a rules light system. Instead of thinking how they could make Shadowrun rules light, they were like, we have to push this out right now, because that's what people are looking for, and so we have to have something that people will latch on to.
They didn't even make their own system for it. They took another system. And when I look at the problems and issues that Anarchy has, and then I look at the 2 different Blades in the Dark hack for Shadowrun, and I'm like, I know Blades is I go on about it all the time, so I won't.
It's great. I love it.
I know that these mechanics are super, super solid, and it's just like a stone's throw away from how Shadowrun is.
Yeah,
and I think it's really
accurate to say that they just took another existing system and stuck Shadowrun on it, though. I mean, it's sort of, it has a good chunk of its inspiration from the Q system that they used for the Valiant
Cosmic
system.
Patrol
and Valiant. Cosmic Patrol, but those are also very different. They don't use dice pools. They don't. I guess, Well, I feel like I'm not going to argue that the presentation of Anarchy is fantastic.
Sure,
but that said, what it did what it set out to do was to make a narrative rules light RPG system for Shadowrun that feels like you're playing Shadowrun.
Right. The only thing is, there's a lot of holes that need to be filled, and those holes can really only be filled by someone that already knows Shadowrun.
That's also part of the Shadowrun experience.
That is, he said it with a straight, serious face.
Yeah, that's funny. I think that is a good note for us to end on. I do agree that Anarchy did a really, really good job, and in a lot of ways, 2018 was the year of Anarchy, because it was introduced late in 2017, and 2018 has been a really good time for everybody to kind of for it to marinate and for people to really dig in and get their hands on it. I mean, not only do we have Join the Anarchy, which Join the Anarchy started before 2018, but we've now got the Talent Agency, and
which
lots
wouldn't have been the thing unless I my initial when I read the book through and was like, I need to see how somebody plays this, or I'm just going to explode. I'm never going to understand this shit. And then saw Join the Anarchy, and it's like, right, okay. Is this how tabletop RPGs are now? Fascinating. So,
I've said it before, and I mean it. This is not an exaggeration. I mean it, that Oz, our very own Oz, is the world expert on Anarchy. He's I think he has, of anyone out there, probably the most experience with it and the most hacking of it and making it work and all that kind of stuff, because you love it and you want it to be better. So
I had a lot of fun running a game of it at Gen Con, actually, for the fans. We got this group of 8 or 9 people together, and it was a blast. We played, we did a run against NeoNet in 2 hours.
Yeah.
8 people.
And
it was one of the best games I've ever played of Anarchy.
I went to Origins with Oz in 2017 and Gen Con with Oz in 2018. And if you ever end up at a gaming convention with Oz and you want to play Anarchy, it's not hard. He runs into the Shadowrun room and says, "Give me a free table," and and he just like guerrilla style goes and finds people to run. Like, he just loves it that much. So and he wants to introduce it to people, because that's the great thing, right? You try to get people who are just excited to play it and show it to them. So
Shadowrun to play Shadowrun.
If this is any indication for EtherCon this last year, back in November, it's just an all online game convention. They had Jason Hardy running a game of Shadowrun, and I got in on it with Hayes. We had a good time with it, and it turned out he was running a Shadowrun Chicago mission, but using Anarchy for it.
Awesome. That's really cool.
So, the one and only time, and the first I've actually gotten the chance to play a game of Shadowrun with Jason Hardy, he was running Anarchy. Yeah. So I was pretty happy with that. It ran really well. It was a lot of fun.
That's a good thing on the bucket list, a notch in the belt, right? Getting to play Shadowrun with the Shadowrun line developer. So, so I'd say that's good.
So, sorry to butt in, but I know you were trying to wrap it up because we are going overtime.
Yep.
Should we maybe be able to talk about upcoming stuff or 2019?
Yeah, so what I'm about
stuff?
to do, thank you for getting us back on track, Damian. What I'm about to do is run our
4:30 for this man.
Yeah. I'm ready to outro music here, and I'm going to go through and give everybody one last chance to either plug the stuff they're doing now or promote anything that might be coming up. So without further ado, thank you guys for coming and hanging out tonight for our 2018 year-end roundup that we do at the beginning of 2019. At the year-end at the beginning of the year, because
that's how it goes, man. Scheduling.
It's December is the end of the year. How do you do year-end stuff at the end of December when everybody's doing holiday stuff? That's what our problem is.
Yeah, have you found a free week at the end of December? Because Shy sure as fuck haven't.
Let me go around the table one last time and give everybody a chance to tell us what they do and plug anything that they want to do real fast. Let's start again with Bamce. Without a net and anything else, tell us where you can find you.
Withoutanetpod.com is our website. There's links to affiliate links, Patreon. We did a Christmas themed lasers and feelings hack where I tried to ruin Christmas, and 4 of my players as happy little elves had to try and save it.
Super fun.
Yeah, right. We also have a small Call of Cthulhu one-shot up there, and we just did a couple of episodes where, I guess the Bottle or the Beach episodes from TV, where the players got together with one of their first shadow contacts, and they had a barbecue, and they got to dive into a little bit of backstory stuff with some of the NPCs, and they all got really drunk, and nobody remembers it, and it's great.
And they got to learn about the Minahuni. Sorry,
I don't know what that is.
Sorry, that was a Full House reference. You mentioned bottle episodes. Cassi with original box set. Tell everybody.
Gosh, so yeah, you can find the podcast at originalboxset.podbean.com. I got a whole bunch of fun, cool links I'm about to spam in the chat, so if you're there, great. But if you can't find us, go to originalboxset.com. You can find all sorts of cool stuff that we're doing there other than Shadowrun. We're going to be focusing a lot on other aspects of tabletop for role-playing games this coming year. I'll be wrapping up the Shadowrun actual play podcast this year, and then depending on how we want to move forward with the characters that we're playing right now in Shadowrun will dictate when the podcast picks back up again. Other than that, we're going to be doing a whole lot of really fun things in 2019 that I'm really looking forward to. So.
Yes, definitely. Very exciting. Next I'm going to jump ahead real fast to Damian, because I know that Damian has a new project that he wants to announce. If you are going to announce that, and then I'll get back on track.
I've got a lot going on right now, and I mean, I guess I should, since we've been pretty much dead since Gen Con this year on Violent Life, which I'm so sorry to our fans, but we have been working.
Yeah.
And working on some great stuff. Tales from the Stuffed Shack is coming out at the end, coming back for season 2 at the end of the month. We're working on Shadow Bites right now, which is actually a collaboration with Catalyst in regards to some original fiction that's being produced as an audio drama-ish kind of thing.
Don't gloss over that. It's a collaboration with Catalyst, which is no small feat. So
yeah, like this is canon material written by Jennifer Brozek and narrated by her that I'm producing on Violent Life. So that's super cool and super encouraging to see out of this whole partnership, this whole thing that's going on.
That's awesome.
And then on top of it, I'm hoping to get Redmond Born back on track. And then finally, my very recent and I'm very passionate about a new project I'm working on called Cybernautica.
Yes.
It's not Shadowrun, but if you like Shadowrun, you will probably like Cybernautica. It's conceptually, at least aesthetically, I like to throw like Blade Runner meets BioShock. So it's definitely very very much its own thing, and you should check it out at cybernauticapod.com.
Yes, definitely. I'm excited about that as well, so everybody should check it out. Chris with Crit Squad, tell everybody where they can find you and what you're doing.
You can find us at critsquad.com or on Twitter at critsquadcast. All the various subscription links and stuff are up at the website, in addition to the episodes, so you can sample it before you make the grotesque commitment of actually subscribing to a podcast.
It's like a demo. It's like downloading the game demo back in the day.
Exactly. It's the magazine with the CD in the plastic sleeve.
Right.
The first 10 minutes are free, and after that, it's still free. Because I'm a bad capitalist.
Right.
But coming up this year, I mean, we're going to front load a lot of our recording sessions this year, and we have our first 2 scheduled for the end of the month. So new Crit Squad episodes will probably be coming out end of February, March-ish, maybe.
Yeah,
aside from like,
exciting.
If I can talk any of you weirdos into coming on and doing a bonus episode, we'll probably do that. But the story.
Ooh, pick me.
Okay. Story's going to continue end of February, beginning of March, more than likely. And then probably this year, we'll see the end of the arc that Crit Squad has been following this long. And after that, we're going to experiment with other stuff. John DeVries, who played 14 milligrams, who left back in April, he's going to run a Traveler campaign for us, which will produce the same way. And I'm working on something. We're hoping to talk Lindsay and Eric into doing something, so we're going to do like a rotating GM and play with other like obscure game systems as well too.
That's really great.
Nice.
That probably won't come this year, maybe, but that's sort of what's on the horizon for us.
That's exciting. Very exciting. Mike with Drek Happens, tell everybody where they can find your stuff.
Yep, it's at drekhappens.com or basically any podcast player. We're on SoundCloud, iTunes. And we're just starting season 2 in March. If you guys like the first one, that was street level shadow running. And now that they got a reputation, be excited that was just a warm up for what's coming next.
Ooh, nice to hear. Awesome. And Nathan, the talent agency.
Yes, indeed. You can find the talent agency on both Podbean and iTunes. In addition to that, other projects, I am going to be working on a zine this year. I've never published a zine before. It's going to be very exciting. It's called A Queer Cyberpunk's Guide to Tabletop RPGs.
Sounds amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of like cram in a whole bunch of different types of advice of running games as a GM and as a player and injecting vibrance into your dystopian future. I also want to try streaming at some point this year. Eventually the talent agency will end and whatever new project I will do will be online based. I have no idea what kind of hardware I need to buy for that shit, so please tell me how to computer by messaging me at Phantom Arts Ent on Twitter. Thank you.
Yeah, we might be able to help you with that, definitely. Oz, tell everybody about Join the Anarchy and anything else that you're working on.
Yeah, join the Anarchy. We actually just started. We're almost 1 year into the campaign, so that's awesome. And we're starting, I guess, what I would call our second act of the show, which is a very organic way of looking at an improvised show. Join the anarchy.shadowcasters.network. You can see us that's where you can see all of the video content that we have. So like every show that we do, we make sure that we have there for you to watch at your leisure if you're not able to make the live shows that are on Mondays, every other Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern on Shadowcasters Network Twitch.
Yep. They just had one this past Monday, so which was yesterday.
Yes, yesterday.
Yes,
Tuesday.
This past Monday. Lo, those many hours ago.
Man, life with children. Palmer. Palmer, tell everybody where they can find you in Radio Free Detroit.
Radio Free Detroit with Ziggy the Troll is at Ziggy the Troll. That's datroll.podbean.com. And coming up in 2019, the first quarter of 2019 is basically crossover town for Radio Free Detroit. I think we have 4 to 5 coming up like in the first 3 or 4 months of this year. So
Nice.
if anybody I haven't talked to wants to do crossover stuff, hit me up.
Oh man, I'm totally hitting you up. I am so excited. So let me just tell you guys, I have been talking to Palmer for like forever through Twitch, and I'm like, wait, Palmer's gonna be on here. I totally have to be in his group. I was like, finally made him in almost real life, and it's great.
Yeah, Palmer makes some good stuff with Radio Free Detroit, but he's also definitely a VIP over on our Twitch channel. He's there all the time. We can always count on him. Cliff, Mr. Johnson with the Arcology podcast.
Well, Twitter at Arcology Podcast, arcologypodcast.com is the website, or just go to shadowcasters.network and click on stuff and find cool things there too. Do you want to say one of the things that I'm doing this year that is kind of newish for me, or a new development is I'm sort of taking Prism Shard out of storage, dusting it off, and going to be putting out some music. I sort of set aside my musician part of my identity a couple of years ago, and I was like, the podcasting thing is doing a bunch, and I don't really have time for. Anyway, I finally have been crashing through my goddamn fucking void wall writer's block, and I've been completing music, and I'll have an EP coming out. It's gonna be like a dark cyberpunk techno EP that I'll be talking about through the various channels. So I mean, you can follow Prism Shard on Facebook. I don't really do anything with it yet, but there will be more coming, and there will be more music.
I'm excited about that. I love your style of electronic music. I was just letting my wife Stephanie listen to a bunch of it last night when she got off work, and I really dig your style. So if it's I'm excited to see more stuff that you make. So.
Yeah, the techno one is definitely going to be along those styles, but I'm doing some other weird stuff too. I'm working on a lo-fi hip hop tune.
Ooh.
And my daughter's drawing a cute little, very, very cute anime style illustration for the accompanying art, and that's totally different from anything else I've done.
Well, I can't wait then. So
I look forward to this 24-hour lo-fi hip-hop channel to study, also run.
Definitely.
Yeah,
me too.
Lo-fi hip-hop to destroy companies too.
Right.
Is
to be honest, I've been having a lot of fun with the lo-fi hip-hop. It was just going to be like a one-off, just experiment, do this tune little exercise thing, but it's I might do more.
Please do. Hell yeah.
Definitely.
Don't stop.
And finally, I'm Bobby Frankenberger. You can find me on Twitter at.
Did we get Without a Net?
Huh? Yeah, he was the very first one.
Okay.
I'll just go first again.
Yeah. Rob could just do it again. No.
And now for the second hour of our wrap up.
On Twitter at GMFunkyTown. You can find me at complexaction.shadowcasters.network. I'm also on youtube.com/ complex action. I've got some new stuff coming up very soon. I've decided to laser focus my energy into doing some stuff that I've been wanting to do for a really, really long time with GM Screen. A lot of my patrons will know what I'm talking about, but I do a lot of esoteric kind of oddball rules with GM Screen, but I get a lot of requests of people saying, I want to learn about, initiative. I want to learn about just how to shoot a gun. And I'm always like, well, that's kind of, not exactly in the wheelhouse of GM Screen. I want to do more. But I've decided, you know what? Let's just do these 101 series ideas that I've decided. So I'm going to do stuff like Shadowrun 101, a basic rundown of the rule system, and Combat 101 and Matrix 101 and a lot of stuff, and it's going to be an animation GM Screen style, so that's coming. That's what I'm starting to work on this month, and it'll be coming, so very excited about that. Thank you everyone here for coming and talking to us. Thank you to the chat room for hanging out with us tonight and talking to us, and thank you all for listening to and watching and consuming the content we make. We love doing it, and you guys are the reason that we do it. Like, it would not happen if it wasn't for the very passionate community that we have in the Shadowrun sort of community. Everybody's just, every time someone makes a thing, just everyone wants to eat it up, and it feels like there's just no end to that passion for consuming the stuff that we make. So very grateful to be creating in this niche community. So
thank you, Bobby.
Yes, well, I love talking, so every chance I get to talk and make people listen to me talk, I jump on it. Thank you guys, and we will see you around the Matrix. Bye, chummers.
Bye.
I have to find the button that ends the stream.
Do I have to
Just keep waving.
Just wait forever.
Keep waving.
It's fine.
Here we go. Hold on. Okay, it's this button